Okay, so let's just dive right into this. I want you to picture something. Maybe it's a friend, someone you've known for years. And yeah, maybe she was always a little bit of a worrier, but she was totally functional, you know? Then it seems like it happens overnight. She's in her mid-40s, and her anxiety just explodes. Suddenly she can't sit still, she's pacing, she's barely holding it all together. Maybe you've even heard a story like the one Mel Robbins told about a woman at her book signing, just sobbing over her very first panic attacks. What is going on there?
And that's the key right there, that one line. When that woman told Mel Robbins, "This is new to me," well, that's the most important clue of all. Because when you see a brand new, intense symptom show up in midlife, you absolutely have to ask the question, what has changed in my body? What is biologically different? And that, so often, is the missing piece to the puzzle.
So that's our big question, isn't it? Why does this happen? Why are so many women who've been handling life just fine suddenly getting hit with crippling anxiety or depression or panic attacks in their 40s and 50s? Well, the answer is usually biological. It's hiding in plain sight, but it gets missed all the time, by women themselves and even by their doctors.
All right, to really get to the bottom of this, we need to talk about the brain. And to do that, we're going to lean on the work of Dr. Mary Claire Haver, who's a total expert in menopause. She lays out this really clear biological story that connects all these sudden mental health shifts directly to the hormonal changes that are happening.
It really all kicks off with a hormone called estradiol. Now, estradiol is a type of estrogen. And what most of us never learn is that it isn't just about making babies. It is a major player in your brain. Your brain has receptors for it everywhere. It helps manage your mood, it keeps brain inflammation down, and it makes sure your feel-good chemicals like serotonin and dopamine are doing their jobs. Think of it like the master regulator for your brain's well-being.
So here's what happens. When perimenopause starts, your estradiol levels begin to drop, and that sets off this whole chain reaction. Without enough estradiol, those little receptors for your mood chemicals just don't work as well. At the exact same time, inflammation in the brain, they call it neuroinflammation, starts to go up. And the result? It's a perfect storm for anxiety, for depression, for that maddening brain fog. It is not you failing. It is a biological process.
And that leads us to a really crucial point. Menopause is not just one day on the calendar, and it is so much more than just hot flashes. It is a transition that lasts for years, called perimenopause, and it has this whole constellation of symptoms that get misdiagnosed constantly because no one connects the dots back to your hormone.
Now, check out this timeline, because this is what blows people's minds. Perimenopause, that whole transition phase, can start in your mid-30s, and it can last for 7 to 10 years before you actually have your final period. That's why these mental health symptoms feel like they come out of absolutely nowhere in your 40s. The hormonal shift has actually been happening quietly, in the background, for years.
And we are talking about way more than just hot flashes. We're talking about sudden, out-of-the-blue anxiety, heart palpitations that feel exactly like a panic attack, insomnia, brain fog, and just a total drop in your ability to handle stress. Things you used to juggle suddenly feel impossible. Even things like ADHD can get a lot worse. It's all connected. It all stems from that same drop in estrogen.
You know, this is the really frustrating part. So many women experience this. They go to their doctor with these real physical symptoms, and they're told, oh, it's just anxiety, or you're just stressed. They get handed a prescription for an antidepressant, and nobody even thinks to look at the root hormonal cause. It's a kind of medical gaslighting, honestly, and it means you have to learn to be a fierce advocate for yourself.
But here's the good news. This is not a hopeless situation, not even close. Once you get what's happening biologically, you can start to take back control. There are really effective ways to manage this. So let's look at a path forward. We're going to focus on 4 key pillars of care.
Okay, so these are the big 4 you can really focus on: hormone therapy, nutrition, exercise, and sleep. They're all super important, but for right now, we're going to zero in on the 2 that our sources give us the most detail on, and that's hormone therapy and nutrition. Because honestly, these 2 can be absolute game changers.
Right, let's tackle the big one, hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. Because, wow, there is so much fear around it. And almost all of that fear comes from one single flawed study that happened over 20 years ago. But what we know today, it's a totally different story. The modern medical consensus is that for most women, the added risk of breast cancer is incredibly low. The benefits for your brain, your bones, and your heart far outweigh the risks, and it can be a safe, long-term treatment.
Dr. Haver makes such a powerful point here. We really need to change how we think about this. Menopause is, for all intents and purposes, ovarian failure, right? If your pancreas failed, you'd take insulin, no questions asked. If your thyroid failed, you'd take thyroid hormone. So treating the loss of estrogen, that should be seen in the exact same way. It's not a lifestyle choice. It's necessary medical care to protect your health for the long run.
Now, right alongside medical therapy, nutrition is just this incredibly powerful tool. And the main goal here is to fight that inflammation we talked about. So number one, load up your plate with whole foods, things rich in omega-3s, fruits, veggies. Number two, think about compressing your eating window, maybe from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It can really help your metabolism and lower inflammation. And number three, get serious about your micronutrients, especially the ones that are critical for your brain.
And speaking of micronutrients, you have got to see this number. Dr. Haver found that a staggering 85% of her patients were severely deficient in vitamin D. 85%. We know vitamin D is absolutely essential for your brain to function properly. It just goes to show how critical it is to get your levels checked and supplement if you need to. It's a simple step, but it can have a huge impact.
So, we've talked about the challenges and we've talked about the solutions, but I want to end this by shifting our whole perspective. Because menopause isn't just something to survive or manage. For so many women, it's actually the start of a really powerful and positive new chapter of life.
I mean, let's be real. There are some pretty great upsides. No more periods? That's a big one. But it's so much deeper than that. Many women talk about this profound shift. They find a new kind of confidence, a directness they never had before. As Dr. Haver says, their tolerance for other people's nonsense just completely evaporates. Once that hormonal roller coaster of perimenopause finally levels out, this new kind of emotional stability can set in, and it creates the space to finally figure out who you are outside of all the other roles you've been playing for everybody else.
And I think this is just the most beautiful way to frame it. The symptoms, as hard as they are, as disruptive as they are really just your body's way of screaming, hey, pay attention to me. It is time to take care of yourself again. After years, maybe decades of putting everyone else first, this transition forces you into a season of regeneration. It's not just a problem to solve, it can actually be a gift.
So what if we just reframe this whole experience? What if the anxiety and the brain fog and all the rest, what if it's not a sign that you're breaking down, but a signal that it's time to rebuild, but this time on your own terms? What if this isn't an ending at all? What if it's the most important invitation you will ever get? An invitation to finally, without apology, put your own health and your own happiness first.